As parents, we all know that moment. Your child suddenly covers their ears in a noisy restaurant, melts down in a grocery store, or can't tolerate the tags on their clothing. And too often, you're told it's behavioral, or they'll just grow out of it. But what if those reactions are actually signs of something deeper? What if sensory overload isn't a behavioral problem at all, but a nervous system problem? And what if understanding what's happening underneath the surface neurologically is the key to finally finding real, lasting answers? This video, I want to create this for you parents who are struggling, who have children who are struggling with sensory overload and overstimulation. Maybe your child has a diagnosis like autism, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, or SPD. Or maybe they're just easily overwhelmed by sounds, lights, textures, and busy environments. If you've ever felt like your child's nervous system just can't keep up with the world around them, this video right here is for you. I want to share an office story, and for the sake of confidentiality, we'll call the little guy Evan. And Evan was 5 years old when his parents brought him here into our office. Bright kid, sweetheart, but everyday life, it had felt totally overwhelming for him. Grocery stores, they were a battle. Birthday parties, they were too loud. And haircuts and clothing textures would send him straight into a meltdown. At school, he struggled to focus, and at home, he was exhausted and irritable by the end of the day. And his parents, they tried everything. They tried therapies, accommodations, strategies. And while those things helped temporarily, nothing really stuck. And what stood out to us wasn't just Evan's behavior, it was how stressed his nervous system was. And after running insight scans, we could see that his body was stuck in fight or flight mode. As we began with gently addressing that underlying tension, something had shifted. His parents, they noticed he could tolerate noisy environments way longer. Transitions, they got a lot easier. Sleep, it improved, and those meltdowns that he was having became way less frequent and less intense. Nothing about Evan changed overnight, but his nervous system finally had the chance to calm down. And when that happened, everything else in his life started to improve. And stories like Evan's are becoming more common. The CDC, they report up to 40% of school-age kids today are dealing with at least one chronic health condition, with sensory challenges on the rise. And most traditional approaches, they focus on managing behaviors or avoiding those triggers. But here's the problem. Those approaches rarely address why the nervous system is overwhelmed in the first place. The medical system often separates these struggles into different labels, like autism, ADHD, anxiety, when many times they're connected by one common root. And that's nervous system dysregulation. Now, overstimulation, that happens when the brain receives more sensory input than it can actually process. Think of it like a traffic jam of the nervous system. It's got too many signals and not enough regulation, and when that happens, the body goes straight into protect mode. This isn't defiance. It's not poor coping skills. It's a nervous system that's overwhelmed and doing its very best to survive. Now, that autonomic nervous system, it has two branches. The sympathetic system, which is fight or flight, and the parasympathetic system, which is rest, digest, and regulate. And in a healthy system, these two work together, and they work together really well. But when subluxation and stresses are present, kids get stuck in the sympathetic dominance that leads to things like heightened sensory sensitivity, that's a mouthful, difficulty sleeping, digestive challenges, emotional outbursts, and trouble calming down. The nervous system, it never fully shuts off. And this doesn't start out of nowhere. Tension layers itself into the nervous system over time. Things like prenatal stress, that matters. It shapes how baby's nervous system develops in utero. You've got birth that matters too, like C-section, forceps, vacuum extractions, long or difficult labors. These place stress on the spine and the nervous system at those critical moments, especially in the head and neck region. And then early childhood stressors like constant stimulation and environmental factors, those just add another layer on top. And that's what we call the perfect storm. And it leaves a child's nervous system overwhelmed and overprotective. Now, overstimulation, it shows up in tons of ways, like headaches, nausea, fatigue. And when it comes to things like emotionally, you've got anxiety, irritability, big emotional reactions. And behaviorally, it's those meltdowns, difficulty focusing, and needing to escape into those quiet spaces. And these aren't random behaviors. They're communication from that nervous system. And here at the Better Chiropractic, here in Sterling, we look at those sensory challenges through a neurologic lens. And we use what's called insight scans to then measure your child's nervous system, how it's regulating and adapting. And these scans, they're gentle, they're non-invasive, and can be done with your child sitting right there on your lap. They show us where stress is stuck and where that regulation is breaking down. And from there, with gentle, specific adjustments, they help release the stored sympathetic stress that we were talking about, activate what's called the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest, digest, and growth side, and improve that adaptability and regulation. And what we're doing is we're not fixing the behavior, we're helping the nervous system to feel safe again. So if you're tired of watching your child just struggle with sensory overload and you're ready to just start looking beyond symptom management, the first step is actually understanding how their nervous system is functioning. And those neurologically focused insight scans allow us to see how your child is adapting, where their system is overwhelmed, and how we can help calm it. So if you're ready to help your child experience a world without being constantly overwhelmed, I invite you to visit the link in our bio or comment below to learn more about how Live Better Chiropractic Care here in Sterling can help your child live the life they deserve and to feel safe, regulated, supported, and it all starts with their nervous system.